Today's video was brought to you by Cars and Bids. We've got some great vehicles being auctioned live this week, like this, and this, and this, and this, and this.
Those are $8,000 used cars. Aren't we talking about valuable? Everything else we said is correct.
I'm right.
Especially if I said it.
Taking a bite out of a big, juicy burger.
And that's why you should never listen to anybody about anything in terms of predictions. Now, let's predict.
Oh.
Let's predict.
This is Doug DeMuro.
I am Kennan from Cars and Bids.
And I'm Alanis. Apparently I'm a car expert, right?
We are all car experts. And today we are going to talk about new cars that will be collectible in the future.
On sale right now.
It has to be on sale right now, and we are predicting what enthusiasts will collect in
Yes,
30
we are.
years. This is tough. It's very difficult to predict
It
what
is.
new cars.
Always easy in hindsight, but very difficult in the present.
Everybody's
time.
like, oh, I said the Carrera GT was gonna get expensive. I was on the Carrera GT forums the other day, and people were like, this thing's a piece of crap. I swear, dozens of comments like that. And like 2 or 3 people have been like, no, I think it's kind of cool. And then they go, no, it's way overpriced and overbuilt. And
I think value will peak at 300 grand.
a billion people said that. Like a billion. Just clueless. I mean, not clueless. It's impossible to know. And that's why you should never listen to anybody about anything in terms of predictions. Now, let's predict.
Let's predict.
Oh no!
All right, who wants to go first? Alanis, tell us what new car we
Okay,
got.
I'm gonna go first with a car that Doug actually drove recently. The Lamborghini Huracan Storado.
The Storado.
Interesting.
What a
Oh.
great choice.
It's such a good car. It's just, I haven't driven it. Doug drove it, which, describe it to us, Doug. I want to
The
hear about
Storado, for those of you who don't know, is a Lamborghini Huracan, but they made an off-road version for some reason. It's lifted, it has fender flares and big driving lights and roof racks
so
and
stupid.
skid plates, and I mean the whole off-road situation.
Which is really-
all-terrain tires.
Which is really fun because it's the opposite of so many other Huracans. The Huracan
Yeah.
lineup is huge, and you can get the Huracan Technica, which is like the I'm fancy and fashionable Huracan. You can get the Huracan STO, which is the I'm driving on track Huracan.
Right.
And pretty much every Huracan you're in, you're going to have to press the nose lift button while you're
Right.
driving on any street. If there is a bump, if there is a divot, you're gonna nose lift and go up and down. No, the Storado, we're lifting it, we're taking it off-road, and it's just so weird and unnecessary. And that's gonna be something we look back on and go, that was stupid, I want that.
I am contemplating ordering a Storado.
You
I
should!
never buy new cars, but I have a similar thought. And some of my thinking is, it's the last of the V10. I mean, this is the end of the naturally aspirated V10 Lambos. And it's just so absurd. Like, if they had made an off-road Gallardo or an off-road Diablo,
We'd lose
We'd
it.
all be like, that was so cool!
Yes,
And
we would.
It's hard now to look back, to have that perspective. But had they done a Countach 4x4 version,
We also have
people
to-
would lose it about that, right?
Lose their mind.
You have to appreciate, like, a lot of companies want to go out in style with limited productions being like track focus oriented, and Lamborghini's like,
Yeah.
nah, I want to focus on just like off-roading in a Lambo with a naturally aspirated V10.
One other thing about Storado that is interesting to me, it was also near the top of my list, is it's getting a lot of hate. And like,
Really?
if you go on
I haven't
Lambo forums,
noticed.
people are like, screw that thing, and off-road's ridiculous. And one of the things I've learned over the years, if something gets hate when it's new, generally
gonna love it.
it becomes a desirable car as it ages. That's like a really big marker. You know, the Daytona Superbird with that huge wing that looks so stupid, that's eventually, that starts to
Becomes one of the coolest cars of its era.
Yeah, it kind of becomes like emblematic of its time. And so I think that
And
that,
so you feel that emblematic of our current time are lifted Lamborghinis, you know?
Yes!
the money is cheap and off-roading
That's a
is
good
hot,
point.
and it's an NAV10, which is definitely is kind of an
Money,
emblem of.
money was cheap and excess was in.
And look at Countach's, right? Like when excess was in, and now that car is untouchable in terms of what it
They're
costs.
all good.
I think Storado is a great
call.
suggestion,
Great
I
call,
love it.
Lance.
and I think that's a really, really good one. All right,
Thank
Kennan,
you
what
so
do you
much.
got?
So I'm focused, as everybody knows, I love BMWs, and I truly believe any manual transmission M car, so that's the current generation M3, looking the way it does, but the M2 as well, they're the last of the line in terms of manual transmission cars, but they're also non-hybrid. They are just turbocharged 6-cylinder BMWs, and that's what BMW does, is 6-cylinder drivers cars. And so for these to be the end of the line, I think they're really special. Now granted, like you said, in the current time, The M3's looks are questionable to some people. You and I both happen to like the way it looks. But I think that like people are going to look back at a period of time like you could shift your gears in a new BMW with the modern tech, with all that stuff.
No, I think that's a good point. And I also think we really criticize the outside of the new BMWs, including the M cars. But the interior of these cars, they're really cool.
Yeah, they're nice inside. They get good tech, and this is one of the last eras where we're going to be able to combine the tech that these cars have with a manual transmission.
Yes.
It'll never happen again.
Exactly.
And the C63 has begun the paving of the way for automakers to switch to plug-ins and smaller engines, 4 cylinders, et cetera, et cetera. And BMW will. I mean, it just has to. There's
course.
all these changing regulations. It's the way that the market is going. I agree with you, and I think that people will look back on the M2 and the M3, which they all complain about, as the end of an era. And I want my words to be specifically marked.
He wants
Oh,
to set in
no.
stone.
I did an M2 video and everybody was like, "You're too kind. What did they pay you to say this?" Come back in 10 years. I remember when E92 M3 was hailed as too big and not desirable. And
Not a real M3
not a real
because
M3
V8.
because of a 6-cylinder. Now everybody's like, "Oh my God!" And it's like
Well, and the
people have no clue. They're so hard. They have such a difficult time predicting what's going to be deserved in the future. When the 80 series Land Cruiser came out in 91, everybody's like, this thing is bulbous with its stupid fender flares and it's a luxury car now. Now that's the Land Cruiser that everybody is like falling over themselves to pay 60 grand for one of the 100,000 miles. And it's, people don't get it, but we are understanding, especially being in this industry and really close to it, we are understanding what is happening, which is like, I'm stunned they're still even making manual.
Yeah,
Well, also,
absolutely.
The focus right now, we're in such a transitional period of time because this truly is the end of the era for a lot of cars, internal combustion cars. So you really have to celebrate things like this, and that's why I'm a huge proponent of and it's fast. Like it's fast, it's fun to drive, has a manual. That's what a BMW should be. And yes, the looks are controversial, though there's a pretty good chance they age well. E60 M5 was controversial when it came out, and now it looks sensational. So it may be ahead of its time or whatever. And I'm sure I'll get flack for that from enthusiasts now. But again, watch this video again in 10, 15 years, whatever.
I think the new M3's design, in 20 years, people look back on it as like a cool one.
No, I think y'all are right because everyone hates it right now. But when you think back to things, Doug and I were talking about this recently, if something's different, eventually it's going to come back in. Even if you hated it when it happens. People hate change. They don't like when we change cars or life or anything about that. But we come back around and we go, oh, that's really the only one they made where it was that extreme on the front end. Because we have to think, sure, some of the electric BMWs have the weird fake grille right now. They have the giant, whatever they are, rectangles on the front, and it's fake. That's going to go away as styling cues lean electric and we don't need grills anymore. So you're right. These giant grills that we're seeing right now, they're not going to last very long. And they're going to be unique.
And they'll be iconic of this time period.
Yes,
I think
they will.
that will like really be a thing.
Love them or hate them.
Love them or hate them. And so
Yes.
over time, when the car, I really, really, really believe that. Also, I remember when E90 came out, it was controversial how it's styled. Now it's considered tame. And yeah, E60, same deal. It was controversial. Oh my God, they ruined the E5 series. And now it's, again, considered fairly, it's not, there's nothing unusual about it now.
Right.
Give it time. That new 3 Series will be considered, the new M3 will be considered a desirable car.
Mark his
I'm
words.
so excited to hear yours, Doug. Let's go.
Mine, I kind of went more like into like a theory concept, which is I really, really think that we are missing the boat. and a lot of people are missing the boat on the changes that are happening in the car industry. Both of you guys hit on it with yours. In 2004 and 5, people didn't realize that manual analog cars were going away. And so those cars plunged in value. My Ford GT, the Carrera GT, those cars got cheap because people didn't realize. And once they had realized, then everything shot back up. What we're seeing right now in the industry is that exact thing, except with big engines. And so the analog stuff's already gone, but you still have a few NAV10s, you still have a few NAV12s, you still have a few big V8s. That will not be true in 3 to 5 years. It will all be gone. And I think that the current crop of cars that have those powertrains is going to shoot up in value just like the analog cars did 15 years ago. So that would be the Ferrari 812.
Yep.
Historically, those V12 Ferraris do not gain a lot of value. But I think the end of the line NA V12 might kind of be a special thing. The Huracan, including especially its special editions, the Strada, the STO, the Aventador and its special editions. All these next-gen cars are going to plug in. They're not going to be as desirable to enthusiasts. They're going to have smaller powertrains. We're already seeing the effect of that on the Ferrari. The 458 is the one everybody wants. The 488 and the F8, especially the special editions, the 458s.
Speciale aperta.
They're the top.
Yep.
And the rest of them the pistas are less desirable. And I think we're going to see that. The big engine cars, the Demons, the Hellcats, those cars are going to be looked at as the end of a special time period that I think not that many people realize is ending, but it is absolutely ending. And you see that with Challenger and Charger specifically. Those cars, if they could get away with making V8s forever, they would. They're still selling them, but they can't. And if they can't, no one else can either. And these big engines are going to be a relic and a special thing from this era, like manuals were 15 years ago.
I totally agree, and we're already seeing kind of the future of muscle cars. Like, you made a great point in your Plaid video. Like, it's like not particularly well made, really fast in a straight line, a lot of power, but it's electric. And it's like, that is, in my opinion, a deep muscle car. And that's like where things are going. And like, but if you like the loud, raucous American, it's like, it's just, we've grown up in a time where that was just normal, and they're just kind of everywhere.
And you assumed it would last forever.
Right, exactly. But
we assumed Mustangs would always be around with a V8 forever. Well, guess what?
When it was the same thing with the BMWs, like they put, they went from V8 to be a straight six to a V8 to a V10. You just kind of assume, well, is the next one going to be V12? And then the V8 turbo came in, and it was a sign of things to come.
And I guarantee you future M5s are going to plug in.
Yep.
And everything is going to be totally different.
I do. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
There are some changes that I think, like big engine cars that are sticking around for a little while because the technology isn't there yet. And when I think about that, it's Rolls-Royce. They only make 12-cylinder cars currently, and they have for a while now. I don't think the electric technology is there for them to make the full switch, but it's coming.
I bet you Rolls-Royce makes a transition. Rolls especially, because quiet is a big thing.
Exactly, but they can't inconvenience their customers with the charging thing. And I think that's one reason why they've kind of held on.
Rolls customers will get there.
Well, they've been, for the past few years, Rolls has talked about not adopting electric technology, and they've basically said, we're not going to do it until it's perfect, because we are perfect, and we are going to wait until electric technology is perfect. And, even with having those huge engines in those cars, they're still really, really quiet right now. Yeah. So they can get away with this for a long time and waiting until electrification is perfect, basically. But I think we're right about these big engines like Hellcats and Demons and stuff like that, because we're entering an era where all cars are going to be pretty fast. Like, electric cars are just fast in general, unless we reel them in, right? They're going to be super fast, but they're not going to be fast in the way a Hellcat or a Demon is. A Hellcat or a Demon, you're leaving your neighborhood, you give it a little tap of gas, getting up to 30 miles an hour, the back end will literally wiggle out on you. It's ridiculous. And we're ending that era where those cars are at the peak of their form. They have been making the Challenger for 15 years. Right. We're leaving that era, and it's going to be
it's
really,
the
really
peak of their form. That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
The Demons, the Challengers, the C8 Z06, I think, even though, again, historically, Corvettes have not really gone much in value, I think the end of this is going to be treated like the end of these cars. These cars left the analog era, and it was the peak of how a manual transmission in a sports car could be. The RS4s and the E60 M5s and all that, E39 M5s. And those cars have been beloved by the market. And I think that for the same reason, the AMG GT Black Series is like the peak of what Mercedes-Benz can do. And it's going to be stuff like that the market really appreciates.
Well, I think these manufacturers realize that, and they're leaning into it too. I mean, Ferrari with the 812 competition, that engine is just insane. The engineers
getting the last little squeeze out of it.
And boy, did they. And I think and we're seeing celebrations of these engines. And a lot of manufacturers have said this is the end. So yeah, those are all those big engines.
Big engine, sporty cars. This is it.
I think also on that note, the engine isn't as big. We're not talking V10, V12 or anything, but the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing and the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing.
That was the next one on my list too.
Yeah, that was, we all have the same cars on the list.
I didn't think of that one, but that is a great one.
Well, these are huge because we're ending the era of not only these manual, powerful vehicles and sedans, but we're ending this era of German sports sedans and American sports sedans competing against each other with gasoline power and speed and manual, because these, I mean, they've gone through so many names over the years, but the ATS-V, the CTS-V, the CT4V Blackwing, all of these cars were basically meant to compete against Mercedes and BMW, and it's this big sedan competition. Can the Americans catch up with the other manufacturers?
And this is like the best they ever did.
This is going to be it before we transition into a new era of hybrid and electric technology.
Yeah.
And we're going to look back on this era and go, wow, it was so cool that Cadillac was doing that. Yeah, sure, maybe the interiors weren't as up to par, or maybe we have all of these complaints, but this is the best it's going to be, and everybody really, really likes those cars.
And eventually they'll all come out with electric ones, and they'll all be great. Everybody's obsessed with Murcielagos right now. The next one is going to be a plug-in or whatever. I don't want to get into that stuff now that I've heard all this hybrid. It's not the same.
It's the what's the sensation? It's and electric cars don't have, you get the speed and it's insane and it's great.
On paper they will be better.
But
to the enthusiast.
Right, and that's what, like, some people who are really laud this don't necessarily understand. It's like, yes, it delivers all the power and stuff, but you're missing just the
thing that makes it actually.
Yeah, there's something like, the way I describe a Blackwing is like taking a bite out of a big juicy burger. So that's that sensation
So
that just
American.
like fills your soul, and that's what it's. I know it's very cheesy, but it's true. Like that, and like it's just like deep satisfaction from some of those engines, and it will be also like losing the sound is critical. I think not hearing V8s running around anymore, or like when we would go to Orange County, sometimes you see people driving Aventadors, and you hear that V12 wail, and it's like that will just be a thing that's relegated to history books.
Yeah. And by the way, I like support the transition to EVs. There's
me too.
great benefits
I
of
do
EVs.
too.
And I supported even the transition away from manuals because there's some PDK is really great.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
PDK is so good.
It's so good.
I remember last year I got a 911 and I had not driven a 911. I got a 992 and they dropped it off and I was like, it's not a manual. And then I started driving that PDK and
It's
I was
excellent.
like,
It's excellent.
wow, this is truly
But
so good.
It's
not-
objectively great.
It's
yeah.
not about, like, they're better. But enthusiasts still fall in line behind the special ends of certain things in certain time periods.
I think that's the point as we go into electrification to really hang on to, because you think about manual transmissions versus automatic transmissions, especially modern automatic transmissions, like we're talking about PDKs and stuff like that. They're so good. They know better than you. I know you think you know better than those transmissions, but they know better than you, I promise. So on paper, automatic transmissions, better than manuals. That's why the car industry shifted from manuals to automatics. On paper, EVs are better than gas-powered cars. But there is that rebellion inside of us that goes, manuals rock. They were special.
Right. And especially when you can't get it anymore.
And that's
when
going
you
to
start paying.
happen. That's going to happen with gas-powered cars. We're going to have gas-powered cars. Man, those were cool.
Yep.
And we're going to hang on to those, manual, automatic, whatever they are. We are going to hang on to that very, very dearly.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about, at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is driver involvement for a lot of for enthusiast cars, for these enthusiast cars. Like that's what they put you in the center of the experience, and that's what they offer that's unique.
What other specific ones do you got? You said Blackwing. What else do you have?
That was the other one that I was like really into. Go
I
ahead,
have Blackwing. I have the Lexus LC500.
Yeah,
Love
I put
that
the LC
car.
on too. Specifically, the newly updated one with the new infotainment, I think is like legitimately gonna
Without
be,
the trackpad.
Yeah, because it's going to be a really short
You're right.
production run.
Yeah.
The one that came out in 17 or 18 or whatever for years that had bad infotainment, that's when they sold the most of them. Sales are now a trickle, and they've updated it. And they're only going to make a couple more years of this car, I have no doubt. Those are going to be the ones that people want. The 24, 25, 26, if they even get to that model year LCs. Also an NAV8, which also helps a lot.
And you're so right about the trackpad. I hadn't thought about the trackpad. Yeah, there are not going to be a lot of those with how sales are on the LC.
Yeah.
And people are going to really want that updated infotainment. Ooh, that was a
For
good one.
there's going to be a little bit, those will carry a premium. It's like, it's a 24.
And you have to wonder, are they going to make that are they going to make that for a year, 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years? Who knows?
Yes.
It's not going to be long.
Not for long. They're not selling any of them.
Which actually that kind of translates to the next car, the Mercedes E63 AMG, the 21 specifically.
Yeah.
Like those cars are real. That wagon is specific.
The
The
21
RS6
63
was on my
wagon is
list.
going to go down as an all-time classic unless Mercedes-Benz follows it up. I don't know what the new E63 is going to be, and they haven't announced it yet.
We'll
They've only
see.
announced the regular E-Class. If they do a big V8 again,
Then that will
maybe no one will care about that 21 E-Class.
But-
if they don't, it's going to be a special car.
Which
And
will be-
right now, the market is treating it like it is very desirable. They
Right.
are very valuable cars.
Well, sure.
For people who don't know, 21, there was a facelift of the E63, and then for reasons that Mercedes-Benz has not disclosed, all of the AMG V8s went away after that. So the only model year that they made this facelifted car was 21.
Now I realize it's 23 now that you can't buy that car new, but it's so close anyway. I had to
It's like I'm
squeeze it in
breaking the
there.
rules
It's
a
worth-
little
it's
bit.
It's worth it.
A
It's,
There's
little.
also been talk it'll come back, but
maybe we
those
should-
reasons that Mercedes-Benz cannot disclose, I think the whole story is someday I hope it's told.
It's a CPO car you can buy with like no miles on. But anyway, yeah, I think that if the C63 is any indicator, which it is, surely, but we'll see.
Here is one that we haven't discussed at all. Is I
Oh.
think that some off-roaders and SUVs from this era are going to be really desirable. I think that the Land Cruiser, which again is also not a new car, but just was 21 was last model year. I think that really nice, well-kept TRD Pro 4Runners.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We already know what the next 4Runner is going to be like because they just announced a new Tacoma and it's hybrid stuff, which is going to be
Yes.
great. I'm sure it'll be way better because 4Runner is a disaster. I mean, it's so old. But
The Tacoma is so old.
Tacoma is so old.
I drove it earlier this year, and that transmission is just.
It's like, how can this be? The backup camera's like 4 total pixels.
Yes.
Like, it's a
No.
nightmare.
8-bit.
You're not kidding.
No, it's
You're
a
not
nightmare.
kidding.
There's still halogen. It's the last part halogen running lights. Like, what? But that's what people want who buy them. And I think a lot of people are going to mod those, destroy them, take
Totally.
them off-road, crash them.
You're so
Production
right.
has always been limited on the TRD Pro 4Runners especially. And I think the ones that remain in the special annual color and in nice shape are going to be really, really, really seriously desirable cars.
And those TRD Pros, they come in really, really nice colors. You
Yeah,
you have
they're
the
so cool.
bright orange, you have the bright green. Those special paint colors are super cool because no one ever takes them. I remember on the Golf, they offered all of these really nice paint colors, and
Yeah.
no one in America
That's
took
right.
them.
Very
there
few.
were, oh my goodness, dozens of paint colors. You could get pink, you could get green,
Yep.
you could get all kinds of stuff,
Yep.
and no one opted for these
Silver,
colors.
black, and white.
I know.
That's right. They
What are
did
we
offer
doing?
that. They did
They
offer
offered
that.
pink.
We sold a few of those Golf Rs in that crazy color Spectrum is what they called it. It was the Spectrum.
Spectrum.
program.
Yep, that's
Ugh.
right.
And
It was
we've
so
sold it,
good.
and they bring big
Yep,
money,
they
but like
do bring
nobody
big
did
money.
it. The 4Runner, the 2015 4Runner TRD Pro in Inferno Orange was the 15 color. That was my favorite. Also the Cavalry Blue, but Lime Rush, any of the special colors, cement,
Totally.
those are going to go down because no one is saving them, and everybody thinks they're going to just zillions of them, they'll run forever. Give it time. The ones that are preserved are going to be desirable.
Well, we've certainly seen that on the site with Land Cruisers and stuff in the
Yeah.
past, like even 100 series and stuff like that.
You see
really
them
nice.
start to go up, but it's especially
Yep.
true now because the 100 series, they made a lot of Land Cruisers.
Yep.
They don't make that many Land Cruisers anymore. 4Runners, same deal. 4Runners they make a ton of. TRD Pros is a small sliver, and then the ones that aren't going to be messed with is even a smaller sliver, and then the ones that are in special colors is going to be even a smaller sliver.
You're
I
so
think,
right.
And again, it's an NA 6-cylinder. But people who want to really get off the grid want like a simple powertrain, and this is going to be the end of that. The last Land Cruiser with its 5.7 gas V8, and the last 4Runner with its naturally aspirated V6.
I like that
Cool.
choice. That's a good
You're
one.
so right. Kennan, do you have one?
I do. So you focused on the end of something. I'm focusing on the beginning of something. So I think that
That's
some of this, yeah. So I actually specifically think cars. Like I don't know that Lucids will be. We'll see how Lucid does, but it's the beginning of a car brand. It's their
You're
first
going to
car.
say Rivian.
But I think that
Interesting.
Rivian, Rivian. for
I have
me,
Rivian
think
on
is
my
the
list.
beginning.
Yep.
Interesting.
I have them on
Do
my
you
list,
have it
too.
on your list because you think the brand is going to fail and the ones they made are going to be
No,
so-
I don't necessarily think it. I don't necessarily think they're gonna fail. I've heard a lot of great things from people who own these cars. I just think that first transition into electrification, those cars that got so much attention, it's gonna be an important part of history.
Yeah.
An important transition point in time. I also think.
Interesting.
I
didn't think
also
about that.
think this really rudimentary step, not rudimentary, like these cars are really good, but this first step into electrification is going to mark a big point in history.
Yeah.
And you look at something like
Yeah.
the E-Ray, the E-Ray name is not going to be around very long. It's clunky, it's weird, it's going to be a quirk of history as we're transitioning into these
Yeah, that's
things.
interesting.
And I agree on the Rivian.
But I
I've
think
never thought about
you
that,
know,
but it's an interesting point because that will be. I mean, this is an icon right now. The
Yeah.
few that you see driving around, it's like,
a
whoa.
big deal.
And someday it'll be common.
Yes.
But we will look back. Tesla Roadsters, we're already seeing it.
Exactly.
You're
That's
so
the
right.
point I was going to make. Those are already collectible and very expensive, and they will probably continue that way. Now, of course, that's because Tesla's now an established company, a real existing company in the automotive space. So we'll see how these companies do. I do feel that they're going to do well. And the truck was such a different approach to what a truck could be, and it had
Totally.
cool stuff that everybody knew about. The gear tunnel. everybody knew about that.
You're so
as
right.
fast as a
My
Ferrari.
only
you could go for it.
counterpoint
That
is
was
I
cool.
have a suspicion that Rivian does not have the funds to make a new truck anytime soon, and I suspect they're going to have a 10-year life cycle of this thing. And so the early ones
but
maybe
maybe so.
looked someday, yes.
But maybe so. The really early ones, the launch cars in the right color with no miles on it.
Yeah,
I mean, that has collection that's
Yeah.
collector written all over it.
interesting.
You're so right. I can see it because it's, the last of things and the first of things, and I completely agree.
You don't say lucid though, huh?
We'll see. I would love it if they were, because I think those
They're
cars are
having
very
some
cool.
software issues over there, so.
And they're very expensive and are not so expensive on the used
There's a
ones,
lot
so
more demand for the Rivian.
There's a
Yeah.
lot more, and I think that it just had a better market reaction to people just viewed it as really cool.
Cool.
And people in non-car enthusiasts even knew what it was, or
Cool
you'd see one.
people are driving them. I saw a Ben Affleck, Jennifer Lopez paparazzi image the other day, and he's in a Rivian, and it's like,
Okay,
that tells you
Rivian.
what's going on.
I love the Lucid. I think it's an
Tastemaker.
amazing car, but I think that pop culturally speaking, I think that's one to consider. The Rivian.
What else you got?
Okay, I'm going back to off-road, and it's a very obvious one. I think the Bronco is going to be really big.
Yeah.
Even though they're making $1 billion of them?
Even though they're making $1 billion of them, I think it's going to be a big deal because I went to the Bronco launch. It was in Austin. And I remember you're there and you're looking at these cars in these amazing paint colors. They've got the boxy style. It is timeless. No one's ever going to get sick of it. It looks great right now. It's going to look great in the future. And not only that, but they launched it with a bunch of official aftermarket parts. So they knew that the aftermarket was going to be huge on this. I think it was a catalog of more than 300 parts they had at this launch, and they just had a big wall of them. This vehicle is so cool. It's super fun to take to an off-road park. I remember they told us it forded 33 inches of water, and I went, can I drive it into the lake? And they said, yeah. And so I just drove it straight into the lake. It was so fun. It was amazing. Everybody else had their Bronco out on the beach, and I was just sitting in the lake with my Bronco. It was so fun. This car looks really good. People are going to put a lot of love into these vehicles. They're also going to destroy a lot of these vehicles. And I think it'll be a real marker of this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and proof on the fact that they made a ton of the old Broncos, but those have shot
And
up.
those are
Exactly.
still really popular.
And it's the end of an era. It's still the end of an era for powertrains because
Totally.
the next if
It's
there is
got
a
a
next
manual.
Bronco, the next one will be plug-in. It will be different.
And
It'll
it's
be
got a manual. You can get a manual Bronco.
I think two-door
Oh,
Sasquatches will
totally
especially
agree.
be desirable. That's like the look. But any Sasquatch hardtop, I think, will be desirable because they've only managed to make 4 of them so far.
Nice.
That's not entirely true, but boy,
Doug, I thought that was a real number.
dude, it's crazy how much production issues there have been.
Oh,
and
so
and
many.
we're in, I don't know, the 3rd or 4th model year of this
Yes,
thing?
Still
it's
issue.
been out
They're
for a
never
while.
going to solve whatever production issue
That
they
transmission
have.
recall
What
thing. Yeah.
What I thought was really interesting was it launched during the pandemic. I remember the launch happened during COVID. And it was just the perfect time to launch a vehicle like this because everyone's buying vehicles to go places. We're locked in our houses. We need to get out and go off-roading even if we don't know what that means. It really encapsulated the time when it was launched. It
Yeah.
really did.
It was the right car for the time for sure.
Exactly. It's going to mark a moment in history.
It's too bad they couldn't produce them.
Yeah, because of COVID.
Quite.
I
Yeah, that's right. It's the great irony.
great
It's
irony.
such a good point.
Yeah.
It was off-roading and going out into the wilderness became a big thing during COVID when you couldn't be around people as much, or you didn't want to get on an airplane with 1 billion people. And so yeah, it's just too bad that it was exactly COVID that really has screwed them over. Although I don't know what's going on now because COVID, according to most people, seems to be kind of in the past, and yet Ford's still having a lot of trouble making these, especially with the hard tops. But Sasquatch hardtop, I think that's a Bronco generally. Though, I
You're
agree with
so right.
I agree.
All right, give me another one. Does anyone else have one? I have one more.
was it?
I have a whole list. I think there are so many good cars out right now. I can do like a rapid fire. At the end.
all
Do you
right,
want
all
to do
right.
your
Yeah,
big one?
No, you say them and I'll say yes or no.
Okay, rapid fire.
Ken and I will say yes or no.
Rapid fire of what we have left. I
Okay.
think Ford Maverick and Hyundai Santa Cruz. Those are going to be
no chance. What else?
No, those will be cult classics, but I don't
Totally.
know what
Santa
collectible.
Cruz is
ones.
gonna
Okay.
be like
Cult
like
classic.
the Subaru Brat and Baja. People are gonna be like, what the hell?
That's a collectible to me.
Those are $8,000 used cars. Aren't we talking about
Doug.
valuable? No, we're not.
No.
We're talking about collectible.
We're
Collectible.
talking
There
about
is a difference.
collectible.
I love the Baja. I think it's cool as hell, but it's
I
not
love
like an
Baja.
80. It's not hasn't like shot up in value.
I don't know. I think there are people who love them, but I don't necessarily. There are people who love them and drive them. I don't know if there are people who
Yeah,
collect
I'm
them.
thinking like Baja.
You think the
Right.
Maverick? They're making $1 billion Mavericks.
Yeah.
And it's not like a
it's
cool. It's not
I
like
still think it's cool.
cool. Like think about old little pickups, like those old Ford Couriers.
I still think it rocks.
All right, give me another. Give me another.
My last three are just like the end of hot hatches and hot sedans: the Elantra N, the GR Corolla, and the Honda Civic Type R.
Yeah, the Elantra N, I'm not so sure because Hyundai doesn't have as much of like a history, but I definitely
GR.
agree with you about GR Corolla and Civic Type R. I should have put that on my list. Those are great examples.
And I think-
Still stick shift, gas engine.
And I think the Civic Type R is a very interesting example because in America, this is only the second Civic Type R we've ever gotten. So the first one was the last generation.
And it was heinous.
And it was
It looked like a transformer, and I like
Saying
it.
it as it is.
I think it's wonderful. It looks like a child's toy though. And this new Type R, not only did it debut with a $43,000 starting price, but it also looks like an adult car. Like it fits in on the road. You don't see it and go, wow, that's nuts. It fits in, and it also drives like it fits in on the road. It is very
it drives
smooth
much better.
to
It's a
drive.
nice car.
So
Although,
nice.
per our discussion earlier, maybe the result of that is the original Type R will be the one that becomes more valuable because
That's
it looks
fair.
so crazy.
and it was
That's
the first
fair.
one we got.
I think I will never come around on the styling of that car ever.
I
Ever.
liked it immediately. I am a teenage boy.
Heinous.
Yeah, it was I overstyled. Like for me, it was
Completely
just-
disagree. Nope. you're
But
wrong.
a lot of people have said what I'm saying, and then the market has shown in time.
No.
Well,
I'm
we'll see. We'll
quite
see
literally,
who's right.
I'm a child playing with my action
On
figures
the
over
Honda
here.
subject, my last one is the new NSX, which has been a very controversial
Totally.
car. A lot of people, A
Totally.
lot of people say it's not going anywhere. It's not like the old one. It is not like the old one, but they made 3,000 of them, which is an incredibly short production run. Incredibly.
Yeah.
It's hard to even really explain how short that is. Like there's more 300 SLs, there's more Ford GTs, there's more Z8s. And new NSX is one of the few really low production modern exotic cars because it's become a thing now where it's hard to justify an exotic car unless you can get a pretty good production run out of it. We were just looking, they made 20,000 i8s. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah.
NSX is a really rare car, and especially those Type S's I think are going to become desirable.
I think-
And they're like relatively serviceable. Give it time.
Yeah, the reliability adds to it. I think that will definitely be a slow burn, particularly because
will be a
they
slow burn.
teased that car for
Yes.
so long, and then it came out and like all of the oomph and excitement was just
You're so
gone.
right.
by the
Although
time.
Kennan from Ohio, this is a source
Yeah,
of pride for Kennan.
the homegrown car. Yeah, they make them in Ohio, so you're very proud of the NSX.
And
America's
it's such a good
supercar.
car. Oh,
America's supercar. a
it's so
Honda.
good to drive.
Do you have any others?
No, that was kind of
All
the
right,
gist of it for me.
that's the end. Ford Maverick is wrong. Everything else we said is correct,
I'm right.
especially if I said it. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.